Hi everyone, I'm Michael with Bad Goblin Games. In this video, we take a look at how we handle combat in Fire and Bronze. As with most miniature games, we divide combat into hand combat and ranged combat. Hand combat takes place when units are touching, also known as base-to-base contact. Hand combat takes place with spears, swords, axes, and any other weapon that requires you to be up close to your enemy. Ranged combat takes place at a safer distance when the units are not touching. Ranged combat uses primarily bows, slings, and javelins. Before we dive into the specifics of ranged and hand combat, let's first talk about saves. Saves negate successful attacks. Every unit that is successfully attacked must roll a save. You will roll one save per successful hit. Most models begin the game with a save of 5, and so you must roll a 5 or less on a d10 to save. That save value can be increased with armor and or cover. For example, a unit with a starting save of 5 with basic armor has their save increased to 6. Let's walk through a quick example of saves. We'll assume this unit of warriors has been hit with 3 successful attacks, meaning they need to roll 3d10. The warriors have a save of 6, so we roll 3d10. Each roll that's a 6 or less is a successful save. So let's see what happens. All right, I have rolled a 3, a 5, and a 9. So the 3 and the 5 fall below the 6 or under range, so that saves 2 of the warriors. However, one roll is a 9, which is obviously above 6, so they would take 1 casualty. Now let's review ranged combat. Performing a ranged attack requires the unit to be equipped with ranged weapons. Additionally, their target must not be within base-to-base contact. A unit wishing to make a ranged attack on an enemy must first ensure the enemy is within line of sight and within range. Line of sight determines if the enemy model can be seen. Clear line of sight can be established if you can successfully trace an unobstructed line from the center of the attacking unit to the center of the defending unit. Let's look at a few examples of line of sight. Here we have a unit of slingers and our unit of warriors. The slingers are targeting the warriors, and from this example, you can see there's nothing in between them. So this is an obvious example of clear line of sight. There is nothing in between the slingers and the warriors that would obstruct the view of the slingers. Well, let's say we had some trees here. So put down a small patch of trees in between both of them. Now the trees could be very heavy, meaning they would completely block line of sight, or they might be lighter woods, which don't necessarily block line of sight, though they would still give these warriors some added benefits. Now let's move the trees over a little bit. So let's say that looks good about right there. So in this case, the trees are kind of in a way. But what we want to do is we want to see if we can trace a line from the center of this unit to the center of this unit. And there's a couple different ways you can do that, or a few different ways. You can just kind of eyeball it, which works perfectly fine for most situations. You can use a tape measure to kind of go from the center of the center, and if it's not crossing anything, then you're good. The other way is to use a overhead light, just like a light pin, and that basically projects down, and that'll show you a clear line on the table. But let's say, just say in this case, that we can draw a line from the center of this model to this, from the center of this unit to the center of this unit. It does not cross the trees. So that means this unit can draw a clear line of sight to these warriors. Even though some of the warriors are behind the trees, and we're not concerned about individual models, we're concerned about the unit. So as long as I can draw that line from the center of the attacking unit to the center of the defending unit, then clear line of sight can be established. In some cases, the line may cross an obstacle or cover such as a wall or trees. Depending upon the obstacle, line of sight may be completely blocked, or it may just be obscured, helping the defending unit. You must also establish the target is within range. Every ranged weapon has a short and long range attached to it. If the target is beyond the long range, then the attack automatically fails. If the target is beyond the short range, but not beyond the long range, then the attack takes place, but it takes place with a penalty. Let's look at some examples of ranges with your ranged weapons. And we're going to use this Sea People's Light Chariot. There's a javelin thrower in here, and we have a small unit of Egyptian warriors. So basically what the chariot wants to do is it wants to ride by, toss its javelin, and keep on going. So let's just kind of walk through a couple different examples here. Let's just say that it was about this far away. So that's about 6.5, 7 inches. Now the long range with these javelins is 6 inches. So that means at this range, if they were to throw the javelins from here, since they're 6.5, 7 inches away and the long range is 6 inches, the attack is going to automatically fail. There's no chance of hitting. The short range with the javelins is 3 inches. So let's just say that the chariot was between 3 and 6. So it's not at short range, but it's within range. So we're about 4 inches away. So the chariot can ride about here, toss its javelins. At long range, the javelin thrower on this chariot is going to be at a penalty to hit the Egyptian warriors. If we were to move in a little bit closer, let's say it rides by at about 2 inches away. Now we're within short range. There is no penalty for the attack in this situation. An important point here is that we don't care about the individual position of any one model in the unit. We only care about the unit as a whole. This means if any model within the unit is within range, then the entire unit is within range. Back to cover. No surprises here, as cover affords protection to the defender. We have two types of cover, intervening and active. Intervening cover is cover that sits between the attacker and the defender, though the defender is not touching the cover, which means they aren't actively using the cover. It's just sitting there passively protecting the defender. Intervening cover reduces the attacker's odds of successfully pulling off the attack by reducing their missile attack value by 1. Active cover works different from intervening. A defender can claim active cover if they are touching the cover. Active cover increases the defender's save anywhere from 1 to 3, just depending upon the cover. Cover also stacks, allowing a defending unit to claim cover from multiple sources. All right, so let's look at a few different situations with cover. So we have a unit of Sea People's archers and a unit of Egyptian warriors. We can see here that there is nothing in between the archers and the warriors, so this is an example of clear line of sight. However, let's just put this in the middle, this obstruction. At this point, this is now sitting in between the archers and the warriors, but the warriors aren't touching it. They're just sitting behind it. So they're not actively taking cover behind this. It's just passive cover. In this situation, this is intervening terrain or intervening cover, which would impose a penalty on the attack roll of the archers. Now let's say the warriors have moved up to the obstruction. Now they are actively taking cover. So at this point, they will receive a bonus to their save rather than imposing a penalty on the archers. Now the entire unit benefits from this, even though these guys in the back aren't touching it. Again, just reinforce, we are concerned about the unit, not necessarily any particular model in the unit. So even though only a handful are touching, the entire unit gains the benefit from this cover. The mechanics behind ranged attacks are simple. Every model has a missile attack value. You need to roll equal to or under that value to successfully hit. You need to roll 1d10 per model in the unit to carry out the attack. Units that take an aim action prior to the attack increase their missile attack by 1. Let's walk through some examples of ranged attacks. In this first example, we have our unit of archers, our unit of warriors. The short range of the bows carried by these archers is 10 inches. And if we measure this out, we'll see that they're about 12 inches away. So this attack will take place at long range. There is no cover between the two units. The archers have a missile attack value of 6, and so they must roll 6 or under to hit. However, since this attack is at long range, the archer's missile attack value is reduced by 2, so now it's a 4. We have 6 archers, so let's roll 6 dice, and 1 for every model in the unit, and let's see what happens. Again, I need 4s or under. Okay, that's a miss, a 0 is a 10, that's a miss, that's a miss, that's a miss, and that's a miss. So only 2 out of those 6 were successful. In this next example, the archers took an aim action prior to the attack. This increases their missile attack by 1, so it's going to go from a 6 to a 7, though they're still at long range, so they're still going to get that -2 penalty. So they need 5 or less here. Oh, that's a little bit better here, so we only have 2 misses, so 4 of them hit that time. In this next example, the archers have moved up, so now they are within short range of the warriors. So the warriors have now taken cover in some woods. And these are light woods, so line of sight is not obstructed, though the warriors do gain a bonus to their save from the woods. So let's go ahead and roll. Again, at this point, the archers, their missile attack is a 6. We'll say they took an aim action, so it's going to go up to a 7. And since they were within short range, there's no other penalties here. So 7 or less. Well, that's not a very good roll for 7 or less. That's 4 misses. So that was actually pretty bad luck on that. So only 2 hits out of all that. In this next example, we have our archers still, our warriors, but now there's this piece of terrain sitting in front of them. The archers have successfully activated, so they're going to get 2 actions. Right now they're at long range. So their first action is to move up. Since they moved, they cannot take an aim action. So they can't move, aim, and attack. So they're going to move, and they're going to take their attack. But this attack moved them to within short range. So their missile attack is a 6. There is this piece of terrain in between them, so this is intervening cover. So that's going to reduce their missile attack from a 6 to a 5. Let's see what happens. Not hit, not hit, not hit. That's a really bad roll. Only 1 hit out of all that. All right, let's move on to our final example. So we're going to say that the archers have taken an aim action, so that's going to increase their missile attack value from 6 to a 7. The warriors are at short range, so there is no penalty to hit. However, we're going to say that the warriors ran. So that will drop the missile attack value by 1. So it went from a 6 to a 7 because of the aim. So now it's going to drop by 1 back down to a 6 because of the running. So let's see what happens. I need 6 or less. 3 hits. That's about what we can expect statistically there. All right, so 3 hits out of the 6. Hand combat is the other form of combat in Fire and Bronze. Hand combat takes place anytime the attacking and defending units are touching. As with ranged attacks, hand combat doesn't care about any one model in the unit, and so it isn't necessary for every model in a unit to touch an enemy model to attack. So long as the 2 units are touching, all models are participating in the attack. For the most part, hand combat is simultaneous. This means both units will have an opportunity to attack before any casualties are removed, and so it doesn't really matter who attacks first. Hand combat is a bit different than ranged combat. Every unit has a hand attack value and a hand defense value. The hand defense value is the target number an attacking unit must roll equal to or under to hit. So if a unit has a hand defense value of 5, an attacker must roll 5 or less to hit that unit. An attacking unit's hand attack value modifies the defending unit's hand defense. So if we go back to that previous example, if an attacking unit has a hand attack value of +1, then the defending unit's hand defense is increased from a 5 to a 6, making the attack easier to pull off. Let's walk through an example of a hand attack. We have a unit of Egyptian warriors and a unit of Sea People's guards locked in hand combat. Combat is simultaneous, so it doesn't matter who attacks first in this situation. But we'll carry out the warriors' attack first. The guards have a hand defense of 4. That's pretty good. The warriors have a hand attack value of +1, which modifies the guard's hand defense from a 4 to a 5. We have 6 warriors, and so we roll 6d10. So again, we're rolling 1 die for every model in the unit. We don't care that these guys aren't touching. Again, we care about the unit itself. So every roll that's a 5 or less is a hit. Let's see what happens. Oh, that's pretty decent there. That's 4 out of the 6. Okay, so at this point, the guards would normally roll their save, but we're just going to kind of skip past that for this example. And the guards are now going to attack back. The warriors aren't quite as adept, and so have a hand defense of 5, making them easier to hit than the guards. Meanwhile, the guards have a hand attack value of 3. The guard's hand attack value of 3 increases the warrior's hand defense from a 5 to an 8. We have 6 guards, so we roll 6 dice, and we're only looking for 8 or less here, so we should have a lot of hits. Indeed we do. All of them hit in that situation. After both units have attacked in hand combat, we need to determine which unit won. Each unit calculates their combat total by counting the number of models in the unit plus the number of wounds caused. If one side has a higher number, then that unit has won the combat, forcing the other to make a valor check by rolling 1d10 per model remaining in the unit. Continuing with our previous example of combat between the warriors and guards, let's see who won the combat. So let's just make an assumption here that, remember, the guards hit 6 times, so there's going to be some casualties here. Let's just say that the warriors failed 3 of their saves, so they came out pretty rough there. Meanwhile, we're going to say the guards only lost 1. Only 1 guard failed their save. So in this situation, we count up the number of models in the unit. So the guards have 5 models left in their unit, plus the 3 casualties. So they have a combat total of 8. Meanwhile, the warriors caused 1 casualty. They have 3 left in their unit, so a 4. 8 versus 4 means the guards won this combat. So now the warriors would roll a valor check. That's 3 dice, again 1 for every model left in the unit. Looking for 5 or less, and that was a pretty horrendous roll here. I roll a 6, a 10, and a 10. So again, we need a 5 or under to pass this. I needed at least 1. 2 would have been great. There would have been no effects from this combat. 1, there would have been some effects, but the unit would have stayed on the table. Since they completely fail all of them, the unit is going to just go away. That'll wrap up this video on combat in Fire and Bronze. Thank you for watching, and be sure to subscribe, comment below with your thoughts, and check out the other videos in this series. Thank you.